Hello and welcome to a new episode of Inside EMA, a podcast about the science behind medicine's regulation and the people who make it possible. Today, we're talking about the future of animal testing in medicine's development. Is it possible to move towards a world where medicines are developed without animal testing? Animal studies have long been part of how we develop safe and effective medicines, but things are changing. New science, new technologies, and evolving expectations are pushing us to rethink how we do this. It's an area where the EU has been very active. We'll explore where we are today and the challenges we still face. We'll also look at the new methods that could transform the way medicines are developed. And we'll share how EMA is working to support this shift while continuing to protect patients. Our guest today is Stefano Ponzano.
Thank you, Sophie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Stefano, you have a PhD in medicinal chemistry, you worked in drug discovery and development, you joined EMA in 2014, and you're now in charge of EMA service, in charge of translational sciences. So can you tell us a little bit how you got interested in the topic of alternatives to animal testing?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for having me again. So it's difficult to find a specific moment. It has been really a growing interest throughout my whole career on the topic innovation and replacing animals. But if I think about my past, there is actually a moment where I started reflecting about comparing innovative methods with animal testing. And it was when I was in the lab, I was still wearing my lab coat, and I was doing experiments with animals, and we were developing a new medicinal product, a potential medicinal product that was seemed very effective against pain and inflammation. So at that moment, we were interested to understand how is it working? Where does it go in the human body? With what does it react? Compounds, usually they react with a biological target, which can be a protein or an enzyme. And so we did the first test by using a revolutionary technique. It's like tracking the compound into the living organism. It's like a GPS tracking system, right? And we did the first test in vitro cells using human cells and animal cells. And we surprisingly saw that the compound was targeting only one biological molecule, one protein, one enzyme. And so we were really happy about it. But it was one side of the coin. We said, okay, it's too good to be true. Let's see what happens when we give the compound to a living organism. So we did the same test. We administered that compound with the tracking system to a rat. And we saw by surprise that we obtained exactly the same result. So that's where I started to value the idea of in vitro testing and see how it could, in some cases, replace animal testing. It was the first thought that really brought me to attention of, can we maybe invest more in innovation and innovative methods to avoid using animals? Yeah, so that was maybe the first thought that triggered my interest.
Yeah, really interesting. So you tried and you saw it could already work with another technique.
Yes, not that it works all the time, but in that case it worked, and it opened up like a new space in my head towards replacement of animals. And
to give us a bit of context, can you tell us a little bit about where animals are used in drug development, and just to understand a little bit what we're talking about and where they're used and how?
Yeah, so in order to give medicines to people, we have to ensure that they're safe, right? So that's where animals come into play. So we need to ensure that we give safe medicines to patients, and that's what we call the preclinical phase or the non-clinical phase. We use animals, and it's not that we use them, but they allow us to understand what type of information we can get in order to ensure the safety of patients. They give us information about toxicity, specific aspects of toxic effects on vital organs like the heart, the brain, the lung. But they can also give us information of how the medicinal product will behave in the body, so how it is absorbed, how it is distributed, and how it is eliminated. So animal testing has always been the major tool for supporting the development of medicinal products. But now, as science is evolving, technology is evolving, we see new opportunities to reduce animal testing by using these new approaches that we are seeing now.
So in a way, because you're going to give a medicine then to humans in what we call then the clinical trials, the second phase of development. This is why we still need that first phase to at least get the right information on the medicine. Is that correct?
Exactly. And I mean, it's not that you do all the animal tests at the same time before. So depending on the clinical trial that you do, depending on the size of the clinical trial and the duration of the clinical trial, you might do a certain type of animal test in a certain species for a certain duration. So it really depends where you are in the clinical development, and you might need certain aspects to be developed in animals before going into humans. But it always depends at what stage of development you are. So considering the target population that you are going to use.
But in the EU, we know that, for example, for cosmetics, it's not allowed to use animal testing. So why can't we do the same for medicines then?
Well, cosmetics and medicines, they serve different purposes. So medicines, they are made to treat, diagnose, and cure diseases. Some of these diseases are really life-threatening and severely debilitating diseases. So we need to ensure, as regulators and with working together with developers, that we collect the right information so that we understand the benefits and the risk of medicines. So the objective is not really to remove all animal testing at once, but is to try to integrate new approaches to combine them with animal testing to provide the right information so that we can predict better the efficacy and safety of medicines and we protect patient safety.
So you've already hinted that a lot has been already going on. It's not something that we've just discovered needs to happen and has happened a lot in the last few years. So can you give us a sense of what already has been done by EMA or at the EU level and that has already been achieved?
Well, I think a good way to understand how things are going is to look at the statistics that have been generated by the European Commission. There is a database called Allures database, and it's public, actually. Everyone can consult it, and it really reflects the use of animals. If we look at the regulatory testing, so all the animals that have been used to support the development of medicinal products and support market authorization application, we see that there has been a reduction of 58% since 2015 until 2023, which is quite a huge achievement. How this was possible? Well, it means that 3Rs is already there. The reduction of animals is already possible, and this is because of several factors. We are collaborating with developers. We are producing new guidance to support industry, and so it's really a collaborative effort that has generated this reduction of animals.
And you gave a word that I quote here. You talked about 3Rs, which is a concept that we need to explain to our listeners here. So what are the 3Rs and why are they important for animal testing?
3Rs stand for replacement, then reduction and refinement. So replacement, it means replacement of animals with non-animal approaches when scientifically possible. The reduction is getting the same scientific information with fewer animals. And then refinement is the optimizing the study design and animal care in order to minimize pain, distress, and suffering of animals. And the important thing of 3Rs is that they combine the two aspects. Is on one side is the reduction of animals, so we bear an ethical responsibility towards animals, so we need to try to minimize their use as much as possible. But at the same time, we need to advance science in order to generate better evidence to protect patient safety. So 3Rs is really going along with better medicines and better science. It's actually driving better science.
It's a bit the foundation of all the work around alternative to animal testing, then. You have to follow these rules or follow these principles across medicine's development, then.
Yes, and it's part of the Directive 2010-63, which is the legislation that it's about animal use in protection of animals for pharmaceutical development and scientific research. So it's really, these are the basic principles in order to ensure progress of science, but also protection of animals.
And you talked about replacing animal testing. So what can we replace it with? I know that there's another concept that we need to discuss, which are new alternative methodologies. Is that the right word? So what are we doing here in terms of replacement and what is out there?
Yeah, so new approach methodologies, they are really new, innovative scientific tools, and they are helping us understanding how medicines behave in a body, in a human person. So there are different types of new approach methodologies. It can be complex in vitro models like organ on chips. It can be computational models like softwares, advanced software with algorithms and calculations, or it can be also artificial intelligence, which supports the previous two NAMs that I have just described. So new approach methodologies, they are not only aiming at reducing animals, which is very important, but they're also aiming at providing that type of innovation, more predictivity about safety and efficacy of medicinal products. That's where is their importance. So the other thing that I would like to state about NAMs, that usually they are thought about one single method. They always say, okay, a NAM is an individual method like replacing an animal, but we have to think about NAMs as new approaches that combine different type of methods. So it can be an in vitro method combined with a computational method, combined with a refined in vivo study that uses fewer animals. So the whole package, the whole totality of evidence that is generated gives you an answer to the scientific question you need to protect the safety of patients.
Very interesting. And you talked about different new approaches, new methodologies. Organ on chip, what is that?
Yes, organ on chip. The name is quite funny. It's organ on a chip. So it is really like a micro-engineered device, a really tiny device that mimics or replicates what is happening in an organ. So it not only it is reflecting the structure of the organ because it's three-dimensional, but it also replicates the environment, which is dynamic. So it takes into account the different flows, like the blood flow. So that's organ on chip. Then we have computer models, and that's really advanced computer softwares that create different calculation that allows us to predict how medicines can behave in a human body.
And what about AI then? Because we always talk about AI, but what are the opportunities there for
now AI is really the new kid on the block, right? There is a lot of expectation. We see how much it is already creating in terms of innovation and supporting society. Now, in this case, I see AI combined to the other methods. So AI would help analyzing all these large data sets that are produced by an organ on a chip or a computer modeling and identify patterns that could be used then to respond to a scientific question or to help regulators for regulatory decision making.
Okay, but I mean, are these methods already available? Is it science fiction or are they already here?
No, it's not science fiction at all, actually. They're already here, and some of them are actually already being developed by researchers, but also being accepted by regulators. If you think about batch release testing, this is a type of study that you have to do with medicinal products in order to ensure that their quality is sufficient to be put on the market. And this type of study is usually integrated animal testing. Now we are replacing those studies with alternative methods using in vitro methods. So it is already happening, and it is already being accepted in certain cases by regulators.
And it's already making a big impact, I guess, on figures and numbers of animals used, and that's
absolutely,
really
and this is contributing to the numbers of the statistics that I mentioned about the European Commission. It's really those kind of methods are contributing to the overall decrease in animal testing. But of course, we have to be realistic. These methods, we don't have an answer to all the scientific questions with these new approach methodologies. So that's why we need to take them one by one on a case-by-case basis and analyze together with developers if they are robust and supportive enough to give that answer to support the safety of patients.
That goes a little bit then into the actions that, for example, the European Medicines Agency is taking. Can you tell us a little bit more what we're doing at the EMA to promote these alternatives to animal testing?
Well, EMA has a long-standing commitment on 3Rs and innovation also. So since 2010 that we had the directive of the European Commission, EMA started really engaging and they created a working group on 3Rs. They also started different mechanisms at EMA that allowed interacting with developers. So we have all these kind of mechanisms like scientific advice, innovation task force that allow us to interact with industry and academia and SMEs that are developing innovative methods, but are also using animals for their product development. And we advise them on how to use animals in the best way, if it's relevant or not, and what type of information they need to generate to support their medicinal product development. So we're also giving them guidance. So the second part of our work is to develop guidance in order to generate what are the basic principles that you need to follow in order to develop those new approach methodologies? What do you need to take into consideration to have methods that can be used to respond to specific questions that is needed to address a safety aspects of a medicinal product? So it's moving, it's going on, and we're trying to integrate. The last part, Sophie, that I wanted to add, because I was kind of forgetting, but it's quite important, is the harmonization part. So if we continue work in silos, it will never work. We need to work as a global entity in trying to move forward the reduction of animal testing and develop those innovative methods. If we harmonize the criteria and the principles, then industry and developers will know from all of us, all the regulators, what they need to do in order to advance science and provide better medicines and safer for patients.
So there's work ongoing with other organizations throughout the world, other regulators, to agree on standards that would be the norm, I guess, going forward. Is
exactly, indeed. We have developed a group, which is a cluster. It's called the International Medicines Regulator Working Group on 3Rs. And we have all regulators of the globe, not all of them, but most of them, like FDA, PMDA from Japan. We have Canada, TGA from Australia. We have Swissmedic. And all together, we are trying really to discuss those aspects and trying to support the development of innovative methods.
And I think you have, when we go back to the first level of action, which is really engaging with the different developers, I think you have an exciting pilot coming up, maybe on voluntary data submission. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Good that you mentioned that, because this is a new mechanism that we are trying to develop now. A new pilot will start now in Q3 of this year, so September, October probably. And we are co-creating this pilot with industry. And it is a new way of interacting with industry to discuss new approach methodologies. Before, it was always within a dossier, within an application of a marketing authorization application. Now we are giving them the freedom to come and discuss with us outside the development of a medicinal product, so that we can exchange. There is no impact on the procedure, and they can find that flexibility and be less afraid that there are going to be consequences or many questions that they have to answer that would delay the procedure of a medicinal product.
So it's like creating a sort of safe harbor where they can have all kinds of discussions with you, but it doesn't have a commercial impact on the medicine concerned.
Exactly. It's not directly linked to the procedure that is connected to the marketing authorization of a medicinal product.
But I guess if you work with them and you find good alternative methods, then in future applications, then these could be used. Is that the idea, that you open the door?
Exactly. The idea is to discuss, acknowledge what they're doing, give them feedback on what they need to do, so that they can generate the data that is needed, maybe to come for a qualification procedure or coming for a scientific advice, or just use that method in a dossier when they are developing a medicinal product.
Very interesting. You talked a little bit about guidance as well. I wonder if you have examples of interesting guidance that maybe will have helped in producing and getting people to produce alternative methods.
Yeah, thanks for asking. We have several guidance that we're developing. Some are, well, they are equally important, I have to say. I cannot pick, but I mean, if I have to choose now for today, I would mention the 3R guidelines on regulator acceptance of 3R testing approaches, which is really aiming at giving the criteria, but also the basic principles to to support the development of innovative methods and help the 3Rs. And then there is also a guidance that we have recently developed on reducing the use of non-human primates. So how we can leverage those innovative methods, but also how we can do better design of those studies to minimize the use of those animal species, in this case, non-human primates.
So I guess the idea is also to make sure that non-human primates are used as little as possible.
Yes, that's really, it's an ethical perspective here, and we really want to try to give that message out and help also industry to make sure that they still do a good work in developing their medicinal product, but by reducing to the minimum the use of those animals, especially with biologicals, which is the area where they use mostly non-human primates.
Very good. So I had this question at the beginning where I was saying, so will we have one day a world where medicines are developed without any animal testing? So is that possible?
Well, I think we can. I personally want to envision that. And I see a future where at some point it will take time. There will be a transition phase where we will integrate more and more of these new approach methodologies into drug development, alongside animal testing, but we already saw the reduction in these last 10 years, and who knows what we can do. And this has happened since 2015. Imagine what can happen now with AI and the new evidence that is being produced. Technology is growing so fast. I want to believe that there's going to be a time we will not use animal testing anymore. Don't know how long it will take, but that's my vision for the future.
And it's definitely something that EMA is committed to.
Definitely, and that's why I like to work here, because we are aligned in that objective.
Okay, so in this podcast, we like to end with a guest recommendation. So it can be something that you've read, something that you've seen that is of interest and could also make us think about this topic a little more.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, there is one book which is really close to my heart. It starts with why. It's called like this. It's from Simon Sinek. And it's close to my heart because, I think it relates to different aspects of my life. But I think it's very appropriate also for the topic that we have today. So when you want to achieve meaningful change, you really need to understand the purpose of what you're doing. And I think this applies also to 3Rs. If you have all of us, regulators, scientists, a better understanding of why we're doing this, which is to try to improve the data that we're generating to safeguard patient safety, and at the same time try to reduce and replace animals, then I think it will be easier to be all of us around the table and move things forward. So that's what I had in mind in terms of a book.
It is a good summary because in a way it's really this mix between reducing animal testing and make sure that we find alternatives, but also to find better data, to get better information in the end.
Exactly. It's a combination of the two objectives: getting better data, making better science, providing better understanding of what medicinal products do to people, and at the same time replace animals on the long term.
So this brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you very much, Stefano, for sharing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was really a pleasure to be here.
And thank you very much to our listeners for following this podcast. If you like this episode, please subscribe, leave us a comment, and share it with a friend. And this is all for this time. Thank you. Goodbye.